What is up, everybody? Benoit here. Welcome to Tactical Fellowship. The purpose of today's video is to walk you through my 14.5 BCM. It's the gun that I grab for just about everything, but it's a 14.5 inch gun, which is kind of weird unless you are not completely sold out to the only two reasons why you build it. So let's dive into those reasons. Comment below if you know what they are. And then we'll close out the video with the build details so you can get your own one of these going. Before we get to that though, how about you go ahead and stick your thumb up YouTube's anti-gun loving hole by liking and subscribing. Speaking of which, if you could please hit that subscribe button. If we could get Tactical Fellowship to 10K by the end of the year, that would be a magnificent goal, and I'd appreciate the support. Speaking of support, I need to give a massive shout out to Brownells, the biggest supporter of the channel. Everything lives on my kit page, link above and below, so be sure to check out the kit page, especially because I'm not going to have a chance to get through every single item on this build. So if you see something that I don't address directly, head to the kit page for those details. To Taco Bet, you're going to look at your 16-inch gun differently after this video. All right, so let's dive in. Why do you build a gun like this beyond Garantham?
Big fan of the 14.5.
And Lucas Botkin. All right, so reason number one is that you are aware that the velocity of a 14.5 inch gun is around 3,000-ish FPS. And you are aware that the difference between a 16 inch and a 14.5 is almost negligible. You're aware of the decent velocity boost between a 16 and an 18-inch gun and an 11.5 and a 14.5 inch gun, but between the 14 and the 16, almost nada. Because of this knowledge, you know that the 16-inch barrel is wasted space. I'm with Mr. Guns and Gear and Classic Firearms on this 16-inch. If it weren't for the NFA and the ATF, nobody would be choosing the 16-inch as the jumping off spot for their AR. And then the second reason is that you are putting a suppressor on it and you want to shave the absolute maximum amount of overall length off your gun. And as small as that may be, 1 3/4 inches off the front is still 1 3/4 inches off the front. You care more about overall length and that maximum minimum velocity. 14.5 delivers on both those. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the only reason why you're going to pick up a 14.5, the magnificent BCM 14.5. You've also reconciled it with the fact that at about 20,000 rounds, the barrel is going to give up the ghost of its accuracy, and then you'll need to replace it and throw out the muzzle device that is pinned and welded to it. But you've reconciled it for the two previous reasons why, which are the more important ones to you. I'm a pretty moderate shooter. I've got about 2,000 rounds through this barrel, just doing multi-gun and shooting with the boys. So I've got years left before this thing cashes out. And so you've balanced all those on the scale of justice, and 14.5 comes out ahead. All right, so with that out of the way, let's dive into the build details of this guy, starting, of course, with the most important thing. It's going to be the BCM 14.5 5.56 Enhanced Lightweight Upper. The thing that I always say about BCM uppers is that it is high-end performance for mid-range cost. This is absolutely better than I will ever need or know how good that I have with one of these. The tolerances are great. They pair well with the lowers. This is a LaRue tactical lower. They no longer offer it, otherwise I would spend some time talking about it, but since they don't, I won't. Anyways, this 14.5 is of course pinned and welded to 16-inch, so you can travel with this no problem, easy peasy, which is another benefit over a shorter gun. You don't get into trouble with the law. The only thing I would say is you don't need to do what this guy did. You don't buy this in key mod. They still offer it, but fewer and fewer manufacturers are offering any of their accessories in key mod, and you're just going to end up in a dead end at this point. So while this is completely suitable for me and the gun is fine, I would go ahead and just get this in M-Lock, of which they offer. Since this is pinned and welded, you might be wondering, how do you do the muzzle device? Well, there's a checkout option on BCM for a handful of muzzle devices. I decided to go with the Surefire War Comp because I like a little bit of compensation. I'm a big believer in compensation. It does create some issues, but the War Comp has been good for me. So the War Comp is my choice from Surefire, because I also knew that I was going to put a Surefire RC Mini 2 on this, and you need to have a Surefire muzzle device to attach a Surefire suppressor device. So that is the 1-2 punch that I have at the end of this. One of the issues with the Surefire War Comp is that it does accelerate accelerate your carbon lockup when using a suppressor on it. And I know it has a labyrinth seal to prevent carbon buildup when you're using a suppressor, but on the indexing ring here, but it still happens. And so that's just something that you're going to have to live with. This isn't a suppressor review, but I want to spend a second saying that I really like the Surefire RC Mini 2. It was one of those buy once, cry once purchases for me. I don't own many of these devices, and so I am glad that I got what I did. It takes the snap down from the AR, like crackety crack, down to about a 22 LR noise rating, unsuppressed, and so that's kind of what it does. And I would also say too that I bought the 7.62 so that I could have compatibility between my blackout and this. So whenever I shoot this 5.56, I'm actually using a 7.62 caliber suppressor on this, and that's kind of how I'm rolling with it. I'm glad I did, because I wanted to have one suppressor that could be on multiple guns for me. And because I'm like you, I'm just a middle class guy and a dad and kind of poor, that really works. So for the bolt, I have a BCM bolt in here as well. I think this is the FDE one, so it's a couple bucks more, but dang is it sexy. The charging handle is a Geisley Super Duty. The curve is right. It's ambidextrous. It basically has the feel of tank treads crushing your enemies every time you rack that bolt. How fun is that, right? Of all the handles out there, this really has the look and feel that I desire. This is also a special edition. It was done by Fam Graham. He had some topography he put on top of there before they told him to cease and desist. That's a story for another day. I wonder actually what happened with that, if he worked that out or not. All right, the iron sights, because you always have sight redundancy on your weapon. Sight redundancy is a good thing. You don't want to be a knucklehead that depends on optics for everything and then batteries go out like this did the other week. I put the Magpul Pro BUS folding rears and front on here because I think they're a great budget set, and they're not necessarily budget, but they kind of are when you look at boutique folders. This really fits the bill. Moving over to the flashlight, I'm really not big into flashlights, guys, so I'm not, this is an older Surefire one, and they've got newer ones, and so that's why the attachment of the mount is different. Anyways, there's a couple of things that I would mention though when it comes to the activation of the light and protecting you from NDs. And so a couple of the things worth mentioning here is the Unity Tactical Mod Light button. This replaced the Surefire pressure pad, and once I did that, I will never look back on that. I am so glad I did. It basically takes the button and it recesses it just a touch. It's better in every way than the OEM Surefire pad that comes with it. But when you purchase this from Unity Tactical, it is flashlight specific, so be mindful of that. The other item is the HRF Concepts shroud. It basically creates a mini mountain around the button, and so while the Unity Tactical one is recessed, this takes it next level, because even with the recessed pad, it still needs a little bit of help, and this mountain by HRF around it really helps knock down the potential of accidentally hitting your light on. Speaking of hitting your light on, the 100 Concepts light cap cover is a fantastic and pretty cost-effective way to keep carbon off your light and to also protect yourself from NDs. A quick tip on this is that I have found that it is actually way easier for me to roll this thing off if I have put the elastic through the front and pulled it back. And I don't know why, but this is just way easier for me to flip that way than it is with the standard instruction and the way that you see most guys doing it. Also of note, I've decided to do the offset RMR using an Arasaka mount. I love this. The RMR I have on here is OD green. More like bad guys have been dropped using RMRs than any other red dot on the planet, and so you really can't go wrong using the Trijicon RMR. I take everything out to 50 yards with this RMR. If I need to do a more precision shot though, it's still good to have magnification, but we'll talk about that in a sec. So offset RMR is a huge win. I think you should have one of these on your gun. So speaking of precision shots and having a little bit more magnification, I don't know, I'm not a huge scope guy, guys. Like, throw whatever LPVO you have in here. This is a 6 power, and I have found that like the 6 power over the 4 power for me was a huge jump in capability, especially when you're asked to shoot like 100 yards, a 6-inch plate at 100 yards. Just being able to crank it to 6 really does make a difference for me. But the thing that I find interesting that most people don't know about is this mount. This is LaRue's C.A.N mount, and this is a couple years old, but guys, this is like just a bomb-proof mount. And it has stayed rock solid on my gun and not loosened up, and the levers have never accidentally come off, unlike another major manufacturer has for me in the past, which is not very exciting. It happened at a 3-gun match. I would suggest you check out the C.A.N mount. It's heavy, it's big. I think they made it for the Marines. But this is a chunky beast, but it is pretty dang awesome. I think the QD release on this is one of the best on the market. I really do. I know earlier I mentioned that the lower is a LaRue, and I don't really have much I want to say about the lower, other than I've installed LaRue Tactical's MBT2S trigger in this gun. I like two-stage triggers just in general. I mean, talking about performance and value, I think this trigger has it. I just saw a post recently by them that they have produced and sold over 300,000 of these, and there's never once been a failure, known failure, or breakage in their trigger system. So I think there's just an excellence in design and build there that I think is just great for me. But I will say that I think it's a pretty light trigger. I do think it's a light trigger. So fun to shoot. I don't know, this might be geeking out a little bit, but going towards the back, I am doing some weird stuff with as far as the buffer spring and the buffer on this build, and I have found a really happy mix where this gun like really cycles and really holds its space well. So you don't need to follow me here on what I'm going to say next, but I am using a yellow spring in this, and I'm pairing it with a KIN-shot hydraulic buffer. Basically, the hydraulic buffer, it takes some of the energy out in the back, and then as it slams forward as well. I don't know, your mileage may vary, but I think that BCMs sip the gas. I don't think they're definitely not overgassed. I think they really sip it. And so yellow spring is really the lightest you can go, and I found that to be a good mix for me with this hydraulic buffer. So the one tip though with the buffer is this is gonna be tough to do it on camera, is when it goes back, it hits, and then you have to kind of pull it a little bit more. And if you're just used to using a straight up buffer, this is now where it's engaging the buffer, but the hydraulic lift is still not pulled back. And so that right there is you kind of going all the way back. So if you're looking to put this thing to bolt lock, that's something that you'll need to train through, is that it has a little bit more to get it all the way through. Finishing off this build, I do want to mention that I kept LaRue's rat stock on this, and over the top I have a stock sock that is a wonderful piece. It basically keeps a couple of key things close by. I have a tourniquet on here, I have a little light stick, I have something to undo screws so I can replace batteries on my my optics. It absolutely wasn't on my bingo card to be using this, but it's stout, has a really accessible mechanism for making it go forward and backwards right here, which is good because with the stock sock over the top, with other manufacturers, the adjustment you'd have to take off the stock sock, but with the LaRue rat, it's internal right here. It's a ring that I can just beep, and this can go forward and backwards. And with the pairing of the stock sock on the outer side of this, actually this is a really compelling back unit. So another pro tip for you on there, but this might be a good thing, especially if you like keeping some knickknacks on some, not just knickknacks, some important tools that will help you stay in the game or in the fight on the back of your stock. And so that's really all I got to say about that. You might think what I have offered up is a ridiculously nuanced belief until I tell you this next thing. A dude that's 5'11" is tall, but you add 2 inches to that 5'11" guy and he becomes 6'1". And at 6'1", bro has just entered a new category of tall, a new season of big that makes you go, oh dear Lord, he's a giant. That's kind of the same difference that I feel, maybe that's just psychologically, between a 16-inch and a 14.5. I think the 14.5 is the right gun for just about everything, which is why I pick it up for just about everything. And I think you'll probably be okay with it too. So my guys, I hope this has been helpful to you. Be sure to check out the kit page for all your next steps. And as always, ride fast, shoot straight, get yourself off the couch and into some tactical fellowship. And we'll see you next time.